and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in, that's right, Season 6 of Wrestling at Random. It's been a wait. It's been a long wait. We apologize, but that is how the season breaks go. It's a new season. It's a new year. We are back with, I guess the theme, Jeremy, would be yet again, even more wrestling is the theme for Season 6. Last year, I think we said we had some 19,000 shows in the randomizer. We are upwards of 29,000 shows, upwards of 60,000 hours of pro wrestling, both publicly available and privately available wrestling material has been dumped into the ever-expanding randomizer, and we are here each and every week for the foreseeable future. For Season 6, we are ready to go.
For those of you who are new to the show, not quite sure how it works, like Adam mentioned, we took all the internet's wrestling content. We took wrestling content from people's personal drives. We took all the internet's wrestling content, dumped it into the randomizer, where every week we fire it up, and it will randomly choose a show for us to watch. Could be a pay-per-view, could be a TV show, it could be from any time period. It's wild. Any territory. We've really seen a lot on this podcast, and to think that we've almost doubled the amount of content we can pull from going into Season 6. Can't wait to see what the randomizer pulls every week for us.
Well, considering that Season 5 was already a massive increase in terms of available wrestling for us over the previous seasons, it's wide open. The door is wide open. I would imagine we're going to see some stuff that everyone is quite familiar with, and some things that are pretty far off the beaten path. Like you said, if you're familiar with the podcast, you know we've ended up watching stuff going all the way back to the 1950s.
Yes.
Here in Season 6, as always, our rule is whatever we're watching has to be at least 10 years old, and the randomizer was pulled in the waning days of the year 2024. So everything up through and including the year 2014 will be in the mix, is available to be chosen by the randomizer for us to watch and review.
So let's start with what we pulled for week 1 here in Season 6. First of all, a cheers to everyone who is watching on the YouTube channel. You can see I'm drinking this is E.H. Taylor small batch in a Buffalo Trace glass to celebrate coming back for Season 6.
Meanwhile, Jeremy, I think it's only fair that I mention what I'm drinking, which is Kirkland's signature purified water. The most important part, though, with minerals added for taste.
And if you are watching on the YouTube feed, if you're not, first of all, go over there, throw us a subscribe, a like, helps us work the algorithm so that other wrestling fans can find the show. But if you're already watching, you see that I am wearing a Coliseum video shirt. That is a tell for what we're going to be reviewing this week, as the randomizer pulled a Coliseum video exclusive WWF Bashed in the USA from 1993.
Yeah, I was not familiar with this Coliseum home videotape. And we've talked about before, like you growing up were more of a WWF fan than I was, but one of the things that was very exciting whenever we'd go to the video store and I could rent a wrestling tape, the Coliseum home videos were always exciting to check out, exclusive matches, that sort of deal. But I did not have any recollection of Bashed in the USA.
No, if you go back to our archives through the past seasons, anywhere where we reviewed a Coliseum videotape, I've given the history of what Coliseum video was, how the WWF, it was the WWF's distributor and maker of home videos until it became its own WWF brand. Go back and listen to any of our Coliseum video reviews. Here, this one, I was unaware of it because I wasn't really paying attention to 92 to 96 pro wrestling. I got back in and I left in 92. I came back in 96. So the only time I filled that gap in my wrestling watching is through this podcast when it pulls things from the the early to mid 90s.
Yeah, whereas for me, like I definitely WWF was not my number one promotion. It was WCW all the way. But like Bret Hart, as you can see from the T-shirt I'm wearing, which is an exact replica of what several fans in this show were wearing, the Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig era. You know, that's sort of my sweet spot as far as like a few guys I actually really gravitated to as a kid. So fingers crossed, and I think we'll definitely get to see them. Fingers crossed, there'll be some Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect content on this podcast.
So looking at all the matches on this tape, while the tape came out in 1993, only 2 of the matches took place in the year 1993. The majority of the matches took place towards the end of 1992. So thinking about where WWF was at this time, I dug out a bunch of Wrestling Observer newsletters from this period, went through to see what was going on in the world of pro wrestling at the time. We are deep in the steroid scandal plaguing the WWF. Tom Cole and the Ring Boys scandal is in the news again in present day 2024, but also very much in the news here in 1992 as well. The WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation that Vince McMahon launched, just put out a terrible pay-per-view.
Yeah, you will see Ico Pro banners throughout this show if you go back and watch this.
Hulk Hogan had just left the company, and Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, reports the latest casualty of the bad publicity involving the WWF is that the Hulk Hogan Vitamin Company declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Before all the steroid publicity broke, Hulk Hogan's vitamins were the 4th largest selling brand of children's vitamins.
Wow. We were a Flintstones vitamin
sure.
family.
The publicity in that vein was obviously more of a negative than many had realized, and the company had officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy here in 1992. Let's get into this tape, as many people would go to their local video store and rent this tape and pop it into their VCR, and you're welcomed with the generic intro, followed by Mr. Perfect. He's going to be our host. Yes, please. I'm here.
Yeah. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig is the host, which was a little bit jarring because I'm so used to, and we've had several of these on the podcast, Coliseum home videos that were hosted by Lord Alfred Hayes, or there's a cutaway to him, and there's some wackiness here. We'll see if we get any really wacky skits. But yes, it is Mr. Perfect wearing a track suit, no shirt on under the track jacket, as Mr. Perfect is wont to do. And apparently the theme, outside of the matches that we are going to see, the theme of Bashed in the USA is, and you'll never guess this in a million years if we were to just stop the show and say, guess the theme. Mr. Perfect says that his biggest hobby is that he is a huge stamp collector, and he is here in search of the perfect stamp. The only way for me that this saga could have ended appropriately is at the end, out from under the counter popped up Dennis stamp.
No, they're somehow in the largest stamp collecting store in New York City, and he ran down all his hobbies, and stamp collecting is what's going to be the theme of all of the cutaways. Just a weird choice. So bizarre.
This has to be some sort of weird Vince McMahon rib on someone, whether it's Hennig himself or someone. It's so out of left field. It doesn't really, we'll get into it, but it doesn't really go anywhere at all. It's superfluous would be a word to describe these cutaways. But what we do have, I mentioned we did not have Lord Al Hayes skits and sketches and cutaways. We do have him on commentary for several matches, including here, Gorilla Monsoon for the opening match from Green Bay, Wisconsin, the Big Boss Man against Razor Ramon.
December 14th, 1992. This match, like you mentioned, taped in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And yeah, Gorilla Monsoon with Lord Al Hayes. We've got Lord Al Hayes rolling his R's talking about Razor Ramon.
He's put together a tremendous string of victories. He's obviously hoping to keep that intact here today against Razor Ramon, but I don't know whether he'll be able to do that or not.
More than the rolling his R's, the way he says Ramon is just, it's glorious. We've talked about it before. Lord Alfred Hayes is a
treasure.
one of a kind, an international treasure. We should also note, a lot of these matches, they're Coliseum home video exclusives, and what they are like the few matches that were on a, like here, this is from a primetime / superstars taping, and they'll sprinkle in those 4 or 5 hour tapings a couple star versus star matches to keep the crowd interested. A lot of times those have a very house show feel. We'll see if this is one of those.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm reading the results from all of these shows from these matches were contained in, and it's like even Meltzer doing the recap was like non-squash match recaps. So he skipped all of the squashes and only had these types of matches here.
Well, you're getting like 4 Dal Wolf squashes, like I would imagine it would run its course pretty quickly if you were there live.
So this match starts with so much stalling that Larry Zbyszko would say, "Pick up the pace, gentlemen."
Larry Zbyszko would say, "Pick up the pace." Jay White would be asking for more action. This I referenced, would this be house show style? This is the most house show style match that has ever been filmed with multiple cameras and bright lights. I was amused by Gorilla saying that there are 14 to 15,000 people here in Green Bay. It can be most accurately described as last match of Rampage being taped after Dynamite. Crowd levels here. Bill Alfonso is the referee. Also, by the way, when Gorilla's talking about Razor Ramon at the start of this match, throwing the toothpick at Big Boss Man, and he calls it, quote, the standby toothpick, which I lost it. I'm used to standby matches.
Sure.
I know there's a movie I've never seen called Stand By Me, but I don't know what a standby toothpick is.
So there's a long test of strength here. Bossman with some shots gets a roll up, but then Razor grabs the nightstick, takes a swing, misses Bossman. He gets the nightstick away, sends Ramon to the corner. Bossman charges in. He eats a big boot from Razor. He rolls up Bossman, puts his feet on the ropes for the leverage, and Razor Ramon gets the pin. We see clips of Mr. Perfect and Randy Savage against Flair and Razor Ramon from Survivor Series. And that's about it for this segment.
Yeah, this is, my notes just say, LMAO, what a nothing match. This, again, this was the most house show match you've ever seen. It was also a really slapdash production. The commentary here sounded really echoey, almost like ROH post-production commentary, except for the mics weren't super hot. But this was not WWF level commentary. We then go, Perfect again is waiting for help for the perfect stamp. He then sends us to a 6-man tag team match from Cornwall, Ontario, Canada. It is the team of Tatanka and High Energy, that being Owen Hart and Coco Beware, in the most ridiculous suspenders and hammer pants combinations you've ever seen, taking on the trio of Money Incorporated, that being Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Scheister, and the model Rick Martel.
Money Inc., the WWF Tag Team Champions at this time.
The great belts from back then, the iconic WWF Tag Team title belts.
This match was taped June 3rd, 1992. IRS tells the tax cheats to pay up. But Adam, we're in Canada here. We're in Ontario, so he has no authority over these Canadians.
Absolutely no authority. It's merely a suggestion. I loved, by the way, the people in the crowd. This is still in the era of just like really like earnest, funny crowd signs. We have a sign. It says IRS vertically on the poster board. Next to each letter, the I is for I'm. The R is for really. The S is for stupid. It is IRS. I'm really stupid.
So Coco Beware is much heavier here, but
Yes.
he is still moving. Cross body, drop kick to IRS. DiBiase cuts him off with a knee to the back from the apron. When Tatanka gets in there with Martel, bad guys end up triple teaming Tatanka in the corner. He makes a hot tag to Owen. Owen Hart comes in. He runs wild. By far the fastest pace of this match. Not even close.
Yeah, give me all the Owen Hart, Ted DiBiase you can.
Yes.
There's a few wacky lines here early. Again, this is Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes. Lord Al says that Coco Beware recently put on 25 pounds and it's all in the pants, which is it's certainly a thing to say. Then he says Coco Beware and IRS are brothers in braces. And then he eventually explains that braces are suspenders in the UK, which was amusing. They also had some running gag early on, talking about someone named Marty Applebaum. I have no idea. This has to be an inside joke of probably some level of bad taste. I'm sure someone out there listening will be able to tell us.
Yeah, these outfits, you mentioned them briefly. Coco and Owen have like MC Hammer genie pants on that are
neon.
Yeah, neon colors. This is of the early 90s where neon everything was the style. But then it's like accented with checker patterns, like they're in a ska band. They've got their checker braces or suspenders, if you will, and trim along their gear. Just a terrible look. Awful.
The most absurd thing about this is that there is video. I've seen the match. It is Owen Hart and Ultimo Dragon taking place on a war show, WAR, in Japan. And Owen Hart is wearing his high energy gear, wrestling in Japan. And it is just the strangest visual. You know, like I remember seeing someone recently post a picture of like 2002 American Dragon Bryan Danielson wrestling a dark match on Raw. And he's like standing there in the ring with the Raw set in the background. It just looks like it's just not real. This would be that same thing.
And this will not be the only time we mention the Japanese war promotion on this podcast. I will bring it up later on in this episode, if you can believe it. All six men are in. And then you have IRS on the apron. Coco's in the ring. Coco tries to bring IRS over the top into the ring, but DiBiase from the floor trips Coco. IRS lands on top of Coco Beware and gets the pin. 2 heel victories to open up this tape.
Yeah, this isn't great, but with the guys that are in this match, particularly with Martel, DiBiase, Owen, even Coco at this point, like it's going to hit a decently high level just by the nature of those guys being in there. All I could think of, though, I know they were the tag team champs. Every time I see Ted DiBiase with IRS in this tag team act, which is somehow tag team champions and yet just screams mid-card, it just feels so beneath both how like great a wrestler Ted DiBiase was and how big of a deal, how much of a main event guy he was in the promotion just a few years prior.
Back to Mr. Perfect. He's still looking at stamps. He's trying to flirt with the woman behind the counter. And then he tells us that we will see a segment on the toy boy, Shawn Michaels.
Not the boy toy, but the toy boy, which feels like a completely different thing, is a profile of, as you said, toy boy Shawn Michaels. We then go to backstage. It is Gene Okerlund, Shawn Michaels. And we are apparently going to get multiple Shawn Michaels matches in a row. Again, scene setting. This is early Shawn Michaels singles run, post barbershop window, Intercontinental Champion era Shawn Michaels. He's talking about how many great defenses he had, and we hear that we're going to see several of them, including the first one, a match that actually took place in real life in the WWF in 1992 with Shawn Michaels as the heel and his babyface opponent, the Ugandan Giant Kamala, with the Intercontinental Championship on the line in Fresno, California.
This is January 26, 1993, Fresno, California. Intercontinental Championship. The champion is Shawn Michaels. The challenger, babyface Kamala, with his manager, Reverend Slick,
who helped Kamala realize that he is in fact a man, not a savage or an animal, but a man, and got him away from Harvey Whippleman and Kimchi, and somehow secured an Intercontinental Championship shot here for him.
if you are a listener to our Patreon bonus content over at patreon.com/wrestlingatRandom, if you're a subscriber over there, you heard us review an episode of Central States Wrestling where Rufus R. Jones was defending the Central States Championship, and we discussed how he was the father of the Doctor of Style Slick, the Reverend Slick here. So
Still blows my mind. Also over on the Patreon, we've had quite a bit of Kamala content.
yes,
Shockingly, including Kamala in All Japan Pro Wrestling alongside Kamala 2 and Abdul the Butcher. Kamala hitting a great drop kick, by the way, in All Japan Pro Wrestling, joining the pantheon of guys you never expect to be able to throw a great drop kick, but actually do.
nothing great about what we're about to see here, however, as babyface Kamala gets no reaction, was not over at all. This was a huge failure, and it's 1993 Kamala as well. He's slapping his belly, and we're underway. You get Shawn sucker punching him, tries to whip him in the corner, but Kamala holds the ropes, and Michaels takes a huge bump off of this. A Kamala with a tackle, and Michaels goes flying. Kamala misses an avalanche. Michaels with a top rope clothesline. We get punches from the mount. And then Michaels gets caught by Kamala hitting a reverse crescent kick.
A super kick by Kamala here does not...
on Shawn Michaels, of all people.
On Shawn Michaels does not get the 3 count. Also, really, as this match unfolds, we really learn through the commentary that basically Kamala's character is Ugandan Eugene. He's innocent. He's naive. That's what we're being told. This is just such a weird match. And it will be a theme for the other matches that we see here with Shawn Michaels, where for some reason on a lot of these shows during this time period, Shawn Michaels as Intercontinental Champion was put up against other heels. It's very weird.
Kamala dumps Shawn over the top to the floor. Michaels throws Slick to the floor, starts to walk out. Kamala chases him up the entryway, picks him up to carry him back to the ring, but the ref counts them both out of the ring. This was incredibly lame. It was fun watching Shawn bounce around for Kamala. That was the highlight by far. In the ring, Kamala hits a splash. He covers Shawn, but the ref doesn't count because the match is obviously over.
He also covers Shawn's back. Shawn is face down, as Kamala would do sometimes, because he doesn't understand wrestling, but he does wrestling moves all the time. Very, very weird. Like you said, it was a fascinating visual for about 30 seconds, and then I was like, yeah, I'm done. I've seen enough of this.
At this show in Fresno, Vince McMahon announced that Tenryu would be at WrestleMania 9, and the WWF would once again be sending talent to the War promotion. Hopefully it'll work out better the second time around, says Dave Meltzer. The first time around, WWF sent talent that largely couldn't work in Japan, and most of whom weren't marketable even if they could. Tenryu competed in the 1993 Royal Rumble, but he did not wrestle at WrestleMania 9 at all. Tenryu was asked to work Mania, but he turned him down because his group, War, was going to be touring from April 2nd to April 7th of that week. So he turned down WrestleMania. WWF still sent over on the War tour King Haku, Earthquake John Tenta, Rio Lord of the Jungle, and Dick Slater.
Dick Slater. Wait, Dick Slater was in the WWF in 1993?
Apparently.
That is, we've talked at length on the Patreon about the absolute just bizarre nature of seeing the rebel Dick Slater, as he was called, in mid-'80s WWF, one of those guys that just didn't fit. That's crazy, though. 1993. We then go from there to another match. This time, it is Shawn Michaels defending the Intercontinental Championship against Skinner. That's right, Steve Kern, Skinner, low card. You can't even call it a mid card, low card heel. Here wrestling heel Shawn Michaels. The commentary team. This has to be
What a
maybe
team.
it's incredible. This has to be maybe the first thing that Jim Ross ever did in the WWF, because if this tape came out in early 1993, Jim Ross had just left WCW at that time. He was supposed to, there's a commentary track of him calling a bunch of matches on the WCW New Japan Super Show 3. They swapped one match out. I think it was the match that had the signers in it. They had left. And so they put on a different match last minute, and Eric Bischoff had to do commentary for that because Jim Ross had already left. Here, Jim Ross, Randy Savage, and still having his fastball, Bobby Heenan. It's a fascinating listen because Jim Ross, he's trying to adapt to the WWF way of calling things. We've had a few early ones like this before with him, but he still is full on 91, 92, going into 93 WCW style Jim Ross.
This show took place December 14th, 1992, from Green Bay, Wisconsin. This was a Superstars TV taping, as well as these bonus matches here for Coliseum Video. This is a very noteworthy house show. We'll get to those results here shortly.
Is it noteworthy because of Skinner's great music, which is literally just bugs and water sounds? This is like the default setting on the sound machine that is built into your alarm clock. That is what Skinner's music is.
Because that last match was January of 93, we had the Shawn Michaels singing his own theme song. Here, this is December 92. We are still hearing the Sherry singing the version of the Boy Toy theme song, significantly better. The Sherry singing version.
100%. That's weird too because she was already gone by that point. She wasn't with him, at least out there ringside, but they still had her on. I guess the later version was the Toy Boy version.
So this was all Skinner early. It was crazy. Shawn's bumping all over the place for Skinner.
He takes an all-time, just flying bump through the ropes of the floor just off of one punch from Skinner. Shawn, you can say a lot of things about Shawn, but here in 1992, going into 1993, he was going to bump. He was going to make whoever he was in there with, even if it was someone the level of Skinner or Kamala, he's going to make him look like $1 million before beating him.
Yeah, Michael's back inside the ring. He's flipping around. Again, gets punched in the face for it. Skinner hits his shoulder breaker, which was his jobber finish. But this was by far the most Skinner offense I think I've ever seen in a WWF ring.
The only thing that I can compare it to is the Skinner Bret Hart Intercontinental title match that I believe opened the Tuesday Night in Texas pay-per-view, where Skinner got a fair bit of offense. This is even more. And Jim Ross still in great WCW Jim Ross mode at this point. Skinner hits that shoulder breaker. Jim Ross calls this near fall, like we're 35 minutes into a Flair Steamboat match in 1989. Unbelievable.
Michael's sent outside. He comes back inside through the legs of Skinner, hits the super kick, gets the pin. This was all Skinner until that flurry of offense by Michaels to lead to the quick finish.
Yeah, I thought this was, of everything we've seen so far on the tape, by far the most entertaining. It was quick. Sure. It was fun, and I love that sudden finish. And it was also noteworthy in that, the super kick was a move Shawn Michaels was using at this time. He obviously used it as a member of the Rockers prior to the singles run, but this was not his defined finisher at this point. We'll see later on in the match against Virgil. Virgil kicks out of it, but here he does hit it for the finish, and it's almost like a diamond cutter or an RKO style finish in the sense that it's just out of nowhere. He's taken a lot of punishment, hit it, and it was done. So
this December 14th, 92 Green Bay house show, Michaels ended up working twice. He also defended the Intercontinental title against Marty Jannetty on this show. The main event was the WWF title, Bret Hart defeating Ric Flair. This was a noteworthy house show because the Steiners made their debut on this show winning a squash match. So this was their debut in WWF.
Is this the show that Bret won the title from Ric Flair?
No, that was in
I was going to say, because that was in
Saskatoon.
Canada. That was in Saskatoon. So this was a Bret Hart defense over Ric Flair, probably used on another Coliseum home video.
Yeah, so the big noteworthy thing was the Steiners making their debut winning a squash match. And it was also notable because Nails was fired for attacking Vince McMahon at this show.
What a story that is, my God.
The Intercontinental title on the line again. The challenger this time is Virgil taking on the champion Shawn Michaels. This took place October 28th, 1992. We see Virgil do what I assume is all the offense that he knows.
Well, how about also, as this is starting, Bobby Heenan, as he always does, is mocking Mike McGurk, the ring announcer.
Yes.
While JR is trying to talk about pre-Bill Watts, Mid-South promoter Leroy McGurk. And this is where I just note that this version of Jim Ross is such a bizarre fit in the WWF. He has no idea what to make of what Bobby Heenan is doing or how to go with it, which is fascinating when you think of just, a few years later, the Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler combination and how absurd Jerry Lawler would be. And JR was able to roll with the punches and work with that great. This was still a learning curve going into the land of the WWF.
Virgil got a near fall with the second rope clothesline. He misses a charge in the corner, hits his knee on the buckle. Shawn hits a belly-to-back suplex to get the pin.
Yeah, the teardrop suplex, as they call it, where he gets that, they call it like a high crotch. You get the cradle in between the legs and go back with it. One of those moves that I'm always surprised hasn't come back more. It's kind of it's almost like an angle slam with not being an angle slam. I remember it was immortalized, I think, in either WrestleFest or Superstars, the video game. But this was totally fine. Again, this made me think of a match on Superstars that Virgil had with Bret Hart in 1992, where it's like Virgil's a total nothing wrestler, but he is capable of like having a fun TV match against a great wrestler like a Shawn Michaels or a Bret Hart. Like, he's not completely useless.
Mr. Perfect is still looking for stamps. And then we get a 40-man battle royal, which took place May 18th, 1992.
The men in this battle royal, by the way, just to rewind with Perfect and stamps, like, you're not like leaving stuff out, cutting stuff for time. He's just here. He's in the same small stamp store that we're led to believe is the largest stamp store in all of New York City. And he's just talking about the specifics of stamps. So weird. But this is a 40-man battle royal. Again, Jim Ross, along with Bobby Heenan, Randy Savage on the call.
So I was looking at all these house show results, and basically they did this 40-man battle royal everywhere. And the formula was 20 stars, 20 jobbers. That was the the formula every time. So
we see it's just, and it's not even like we don't get entrances. This isn't Royal Rumble style. It's just everyone one by one follows each other out to the ring. It's just like a geek walk. It makes everyone, even guys like the big stars, just look like such dorks. But here comes Shawn, here comes Bret, here comes Kerry Von Erich, and then the litany of men. We get Barry Horowitz, Dal Wolf, Brian Costello, who we got a curated list of on the bonus feed, if you remember, a long time ago. Reno Riggins, Dwayne Gill, the future
Gilbert, yes.
Chuck Casey, Tom Stone, Bert Spears, Tom Cumberland, who was always one of those guys, almost to me like a Mark Starr in WCW, that you'd see him out there. He's got good size. He's put together. He's an athlete. I was like, why didn't this guy end up being something more than a jobber? But he's here. Then we got Money Inc., the Nasty Boys, the Beverly Brothers, High Energy, Legion of Doom, Natural Disasters. And the Natural Disasters get eliminated almost immediately. You've got Barry Horowitz and Reno Riggins and Tom Stone are outlasting the Natural Disasters.
Yeah, this is every boring battle royal you've ever seen. Bret tossed Shawn. IRS dumps both Bret and Shawn. Virgil and DiBiase eliminate each other. The final four are the Beverly Brothers, IRS, and Tatanka. It comes down to just Blake Beverly and Tatanka left, and Tatanka chops him off the apron to win the Battle Royal. So we're big in our Tatanka push here.
Yeah, this is definitely, Tatanka was undefeated at this time. It's also very jarring because he looks facially exactly like Scott Steiner, and it definitely throws me off. But yeah, I mean, everything about this just screamed afterthought. The audio production on this is terrible. Bobby Heenan sounds like he's 10 feet away, like me every once in a while when I forget to activate the real microphone or working off the laptop microphone. It's not good. We almost the entire match, it's just the hard cam. It feels like they sent out, like they just sent home the rest of the cameramen, just left the hard cam on and told last person out the building to turn it off. Not exciting really for an exclusive match.
Perfect sees a stamp worth $2 million. He says it's been canceled and tears it up. We get a Bret Hart video.
This is great. This is so great.
He's reserved. He likes to draw in his spare time. He draws cartoons, and we get to see him draw a cartoon of The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Money Incorporated, and Hulk Hogan.
He talks about how you have to exaggerate wrestlers' ugly features and that sometimes the other wrestlers take offense. He says that Money Inc. hates his cartoons, so he's going to draw them for us right now. This is the most laid-back, wholesome.
That's exactly what my notes say is wholesome.
Normal human being thing that I think has ever aired on WWF television or Coliseum home video. Bret says everyone is good at something. It's important for kids to know this. He just comes across as the best, most normal dude ever here. And you also can't help as you're watching this but think, well, yeah, this is the WWF and Vince McMahon drawing a stark contrast between the steroid era, larger than life Hulk Hogan, and here's their guy that says, we're different now. This isn't us anymore. It's Bret Hart. But this is just tremendous.
The new generation. So we get our next match, the WWF Intercontinental Championship. This time it's the challenger Rick the Model Martel, and the Intercontinental Champion is Bret the Hitman Hart. This match, June 1st, 1992, from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, before 9,000 fans.
And this was awkward because we just had 3 matches, a series, a toy boy profile of Shawn Michaels defending the Intercontinental Championship. We were also told earlier on that Bret Hart is the WWF champion. So I was so confused when here comes Bret Hart with the Intercontinental Championship defending against Rick Martel. I don't care what belts are involved here, though. It's Bret Hart. It's Rick Martel, who I was a huge fan of as a kid. So I'm very much ready for this.
Speaking of the belt in question, this is the Reggie Parks Intercontinental title design. This belt just looks like it was made for Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. Like those two guys with that style belt. It was peanut butter and jelly. It was perfection. Those guys looked great with that title.
The only thing I can compare it to is Hiroshi Tanahashi with a version of the IWGP Championship that he had for so many times, that Okada had as well before we moved to the IWGP World title, in terms of something being looked like it was made for. I guess you could throw obviously the big gold belt and Ric Flair in that mix as well. But yeah, just it is the iconic IC title. We've talked about before all the interchangeable, not memorable at all versions of the Intercontinental title have come since, including that one that looked like a penny on leather. This is beautiful.
Bret gives his sunglasses to a child at ringside. Get a lot of stalling early by Martel. After a clothesline to the face, they fight outside the ring. Back inside, Martel catches Bret coming back into the ring. Martel misses a charge in the corner, and he hits his shoulder against the ring post. Bret starts working the arm.
We're already clearly at it, and again, this isn't like pay-per-view level pace, but like we're at a different level of professional wrestling than we have been on the rest of this tape, with obviously Bret Hart and Rick Martel as well. Also, Bobby Heenan says how similar these two men are, except Brett has, quote, 2 to 3 more quarts of oil in his hair than Rick Martel does. I had forgotten about Rick Martel walking down to the ring in the big, like, oversized sport jacket, the like pastel color sport jacket with the giant button that said, I am a model. Like, this button that was pinned on his jacket is as large, if not larger, than the actual front plate of the championship belt that Bret Hart holds. It's just gloriously absurd.
Martel catches Hitman with a hot shot, dropping him throat first across the top rope. Martel sends Hart off the ropes. Hart hits an aggressive, fast sunset flip for a good near fall.
Everything Bret does. We talk about that Stampede snap. Yeah, yes. Whether it be a Bret Hart, a Dynamite Kid, Owen Hart, just go up and down the list. Everything it does, even a sunset flip, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with that. It's on display here. Also, what was on display is Jim Ross, who's on commentary for this, which is cool to hear Jim Ross calling a 1992 Bret Hart match. But he still is very much, again, in WCW mode, as he's telling us that these ropes are steel cable to get over the impact of that hot shot. They are not steel cable, JR. They are
ropes.
They are rope. He may have gotten a rope burn on his throat, but it's not high tension cable.
Martel to the apron. Slingshots in for a splash, but Hart got the knees up. Hitman runs wild. Russian leg sweep for 2. Perfect backbreaker. Hitman goes for the sharpshooter, but Martel grabs the referee. He fell down. Martel hits Hitman with the arrogance can. His can. The
atomizer.
Yes. He hits him with it behind the ref's back. Martel then puts on the full Boston Crab, which is his finisher. And at this point, Shawn Michaels comes out to ringside. He punches the Hitman while he's in the Boston Crab. Martel thinks the Hitman quit. He finds out that he's been disqualified because of Shawn Michaels' interference. He immediately goes after Shawn Michaels. This was a big angle here to set up Michaels versus Hitman, but it was fun to throw Martel into the mix as well. This was I think for a match that wasn't going to have a finish. This was a fun angle.
You said this took place in June '92, so I think what this was setting up was Michaels and Martel at SummerSlam '92, which we reviewed over in the over in the bonus feed, which is yet again another Shawn Michaels 92 into 93 heel versus heel match and feud. So weird. Like, it's like they really never did, but they couldn't stop doing it with Shawn Michaels. Finish aside, this was super fun for what it was here. And you're just seeing, obviously, Bret Hart, a master, but you're also seeing Rick Martel, who is pretty damn great. I'm still, by the way, waiting for the randomizer to pick something from his way too short-lived, incredible comeback in WCW in 1998. He had that great series of Booker T before he blew his knee out. I want some of that.
The main event of that house show that this match was on was Randy Savage defending the WWF title by pinning Shawn Michaels in a Dave Meltzer 3-star match.
I would have loved to have seen that, even if it was only 3 stars, just for the novelty of seeing those two ships, that you just more think of as passing in the night, actually collide in the ring in the main event.
It was apparently a 3-star match, all because of Michaels' performance, as Savage just wasn't into it that much. So I can't imagine how...
It's a shame.
How much fun, but still 3 stars. That had to be incredible.
Which also tells you the level that Shawn Michaels was at that point, and he still would hit a higher level there, but he was proving everyone right that the singles run was the right call.
The Natural Disasters versus the Beverly Brothers with the Genius from June 30th, 1992. I was immediately thinking about SummerSlam 92 here. We reviewed that over in the bonus content.
If you're watching on YouTube, you see my hand on my forehead and the exasperation. I am visually channeling the sound of Jim Ross's voice. He was so hyped for Bret and Martel, even for like Michaels and Skinner. this is clearly the like, oh God, yeah, I'm in the WWF now sort of moment. He is not into this. The Beverlys jump the Disasters at the bell. We get a do-si-do, and the Disasters hit double clotheslines. They smush each guy in the corner, then they get both of them in the same corner and smush them again. This is another act that like I never got as baby faces. I didn't mind them as heels, but I don't know. Not a big Typhoon guy. Got all the time in the world for John Tenta.
Yeah, they got the heat on Typhoon, who finally makes a hot tag to Earthquake. He runs.
Him as selling baby faces is so weird. It's not quite
so weird.
Like the Legion of Doom selling like any other normal baby face tag team, which we've talked about previously, but just seeing the Beverly Brothers get the heat on a guy as big as Typhoon for like 5 minutes is just strange.
So Tenta's running wild on this hot tag, and he does like practically a jumping pump kick. I was like,
yes,
what? John Tenta.
I love that.
Quake goes for his move, but before he can drop a Northern Exposure, the
Earthquake splash, but we know it and love it here on this podcast as the Northern Exposure.
The Beverly Brothers roll to the floor. They fight outside. The Genius gets tossed down the aisle. The ref calls for the bell, and the Beverlys win by countout.
What I'm quickly remembering, it's been a while since I visited the land of Coliseum home video. The most exclusive thing to find on a Coliseum home videotape exclusive match is a clean finish of any kind, or a satisfying finish of any kind. This was absolutely nothing. The only thing that was entertaining about this was Bobby Heenan just going on some just meandering diatribe about Typhoon retiring and becoming a human amusement park ride after his career ends. This existed.
So we have a huge time jump as we go from June 30th, 1992, that last match, to our final match on the tape, which actually was taped March 8th, 1993.
Wow.
So big time jump. Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji taking on The Undertaker with Paul Bearer.
We have Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes on commentary. So they sort of bookend this tape on commentary, where it's the JR, Bobby, and Savage trio for the majority of the show.
This is big in the early 93 Yoko push here. He had just won the Royal Rumble in January. He's going to get the title match against Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9. And here he's taking on The Undertaker. So Yoko clotheslines him over the top. He, of course, lands on his feet. Fuji jabs Taker with the Japanese flag, which allows Yoko to attack him from behind. Back inside, Yoko squashes Taker in the corner. He slams Taker, hits a big leg drop. I love the Yokozuna leg drop. This prime Yokozuna, he had a very small window where he was an agile, gigantic human being, and then his weight became too much of an issue. But here, this is when you could see him moving and jumping and hitting a leg drop like this. Super impressive.
Well, he's still put on weight from, when he had his tryout as Kokina, or when he did his stuff in New Japan as Kokina, but he has that athleticism. So like you said, there's a brief window where he is awesome. This leg drop, like I always as a kid thought the Hogan leg drop as a finish, like, ugh, why is this a finish? But like I still could now legitimately buy this leaping through the air giant man with these huge legs dropping a leg over your face. I buy this 100% as a finish, even if he didn't use it as a finish in 1993. Of course, Undertaker sits up because he's the Undertaker in 1993. However, Yoko beats into the punch and hits his awesome, huge belly-to-belly suplex, which is another thing that you could buy as a finish back then or now. He then beans Undertaker over the head with the salt bucket over and over, and Bill Alfonso calls for the bell.
Yes, so Taker wins by DQ. Yoko goes for the bonsai drop but misses, which is it's a middle rope Northern Exposure. Taker with 3 clotheslines finally knocks Yoko down. Taker with a choke slam, which got 0 height, maybe a half an inch off the mat.
Yes, I'm surprised if Bobby Heenan was on the call for this, he would have called it a hip lock instead of a body slam, going back to the Lex Express with Yokozuna. This is this weird era for Taker too, where he does basically wrestles like a zombie, where he just slowly stalks around the ring, the magical powers of the urn. But then there's these moments where Mean Mark comes out and he's super fast and agile, big man Undertaker. And this big jumping clothesline definitely fits that bill. He also had an awesome leaping counter DDT off a backtrack attempt early in the match. But shock of all shocks, not a satisfying finish here.
We go to Mr. Perfect to close out the tape, where Perfect couldn't find the perfect stamp. He shows his collection, which is one stamp with his face on it, as the videotape goes off the air.
So stupid. We talk about on these Coliseum home videos, just the absurdity of the Lord Alfred Hayes stuff and just how over the top it is and just so cheesy. And it would not air anywhere other than the WWF. But my God, did I have so much more of an appreciation for that after watching this tape. I used the word superfluous earlier. I think a much better word to describe these cut-ins with Mr. Perfect would be perfunctory. It's just there's no reason. They basically had 2 cut scenes worth of content that they stretched over 8. It's Perfect goes into the stamp shop, can't find stamps, and then the end where the punchline is, his stamp collection is just one stamp and it's a picture of him. But instead we've got 6 cutaway segments throughout the tape that do not advance this at all. It's not funny. It's not wacky. It's just there to just lightly break up the action, I guess.
Favorite thing on this show for you, Adam?
I mean, I would say the action in Bret Hart and Rick Martel.
That is correct.
Was by far in ring the best thing. I would say from a surprise standpoint, because I had not thought about these 40-man battle royals in so long, just the visual of this procession of men that starts with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Kerry Von Erich, and then we don't ease in from going from Kerry Von Erich to Typhoon and then Skinner. It's Bret, it's Shawn, it's Kerry Von Erich, it's Barry Horowitz, it's Dal Wolf, it's Dwayne Gill. And then we ramp it back up with Money Inc. and the Nasty Boys and guys like that. But that just, I was not prepared for the journey that entrance is going to take me on.
Honorable mention to the commentary team of Jim Ross, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Bobby Heenan as well. That was a pleasant surprise on this tape. It was really fun. And
you talk about paths intersecting. It's such a small window of time for those 3 guys to be in the same place to do a series of matches together. So yeah, very glad we got to hear that.
Worst thing on this show for you?
It's the finishes. It's just, I remember as a kid, you'd see the covers of the Coliseum home videotapes and you'd always get so excited because it'd be star versus star matches, which, as we talked about before, you really only got on pay-per-views, Saturday night's main event. You'd have a main event on Superstars, but it would be Tatanka against Erwin R. Scheister. That would be the extent of what you would get. So you'd be so excited when you'd see all these matchups. You'd get home, you'd pop the tape, and you'd see Lord Al do weird stuff. And then you just get a bunch of disappointing matches with disappointing finishes. And yet somehow you'd always have amnesia. And 2 months later, you'd go back and you'd see the new Coliseum home videotape promising the same big matches, and you'd get all excited all over again. And then it would end up being what it is. There was no Steiners versus Owen and Bret Hart to be found on this home video.
Now, honorable mention to the Mr. Perfect segments not living up.
No.
We think of the Mr. Perfect vignettes, and we think about all the potential that you could do with the performer that is Kurt Hennig. And here it's just a whole lot of nothing. This whole stamp collection thing, so bizarre. That didn't ring true. And like you mentioned, every time I pop in a tape, I'm thinking Lord Al Hayes messing with Sean Mooney. I'm gonna get some funny stuff.
Yes, they're gonna be broke down on the side of the road, or they're gonna be doing doing a food fight with the bushwhackers. Here, this is the perfect thing. Was like you said, with the great vignettes they had with him, in the years prior. I think this was one of those things that it sounded good on paper. I guess whoever put it together, but in execution, it flopped pretty miserably.
If you want to watch this, you can see it on Peacock, WWE Network, Netflix, wherever the WWE's historic content is available at this point in time. You're listening to this podcast. You can find it there. Of course, this is all evergreen content, as is the entire back catalog of this podcast, over 5 seasons worth. You can go back, start listening to all of the bonus content, all of the content you have right now for free in this back catalog of free content. It is there. It is fresh and is new. If you haven't heard it, it is brand new to you. It is evergreen content. Go give it a listen. You've got a lot of work to do to catch up, and so go ahead.
Well, you mentioned 5 seasons. We should note all of our seasons have gone at least 30 episodes. So you're looking at
30 episodes,
150 to 160 episodes available for free in your feed, exactly where you're listening to this right now, whether it be at wrestlingatrandom.com, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else the podcast lives right now. All of that's available to you, like you said, as new as it was the moment it was released.
If you are a longtime listener and you're saying, listen, guys, I've been chomping at the bit for season 6. Glad you're back. This first episode of season 6, thank goodness the free feed has been quiet without these episodes. We're glad you're here. We've been recording every single week in the off season,
nonstop,
over on our bonus content. I mentioned it throughout the show. Patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom. There you can get. We were putting out shows every single week in the bonus feed, and so we're close to 200 episodes,
right around 200.
So if you have only been listening to the bonus content, or you've only been listening to the free content and you've missed out on the bonus content, don't worry. That's all evergreen content too. You can sign up right now for $5. You unlock the entire back catalog, 200 episodes. What a value. Over there, you can hear Adam review a movie. You can hear us review
a wrestling themed movie, we should say. We take wrestling themed movie requests along with all other professional wrestling. Over at the Patreon, we should also note that, yes, there are people who support the show at that tier where they can listen to our bonus feed. There's an additional tier where people can choose what we watch and review, the intentionalizer tier. And we're several years at this point into the episodes over there being intentionalized, which means it's even somehow crazier and wackier than what we have here on the bonus feed. Fascinating stuff, far-flung territories that even Jeremy and I did not know about, which tells you sort of the stump the band type of deal that the listeners like to do with us over there on the bonus feed. We should also mention that you can subscribe to the bonus feed via Apple Podcasts and listen to the bonus shows there. We don't have the intentionalizer tier option there, but you can listen to the bonus feed there. It'll pop up into your Apple Podcast feed, just like all these episodes do.
That's right. If you sign up at patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom, you can also listen via Spotify if that's your preferred podcatcher of choice as well. And it's got an RSS feed. You can put it into whatever else you want to listen to. So with that, we are going to wrap it up. Season 6 is officially underway. We are going to fire up the randomizer next week and see where it takes us. And with that, we're going to wrap up the podcast for this week. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Coliseum Home Video. And I'll say thank you to our listeners who have withstood a long off season between season 5 and season 6. We appreciate your patience, and we are ready to reward you with all sorts of insanity that the randomizer can provide for us and for you in the coming weeks and months. Can't wait to see what we got coming.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Talk to you again next time.